I'm so sorry, by the way, that I wasn't able to stop by in Philadelphia. Had a very jam-packed schedule, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity to actually share with you some of my great memories in the sport of soccer. I've been in the game my entire life, so it's actually really, really hard to boil it down to what are my favorite memories. So I'll list off just a couple. Actually, for me, the very first starts when I was 7, and that fateful day or opportunistic day, depending on how you look at it, when the coach told me how great it would be to play goalkeeper, the most important position on the field, and I shot my hand straight up. Little did I know that was going to be a decision that I would impact the rest of my life. And I started playing goalkeeper from the age of 7. But beyond that, as a fan, in 2006 in the World Cup in Germany, watching our men in Kaiserslautern play against Italy, when in fact I felt like we had home field advantage in the stadium. But beyond that, I mean, the 1994, July 4th at Stanford Stadium, U.S. versus Brazil, I can't call that one of my favorite memories, but rather one of the most impactful when we saw Tab take the elbow to his cheek and the way our guys performed and what they had to do. Of course, 1999, when I was sitting in the Rose Bowl and Brandy scored the penalty to win the 1999 Women's World Cup. Or probably my two most recent favorites are marching with our fans in Brazil before our men played Belgium, and of course when our women in Vancouver won the FIFA Women's World Cup. But that's just a small list because those go on forever. My history in amateur and adult soccer is actually pretty rich and pretty deep. Not so much as a coach, although every once in a while I'll get on the touchline of a Manhattan Celtic game in the Cosmopolitan League until Dave and the other guys tell me to go sit back down. But I actually started right out of college in 1991. When I graduated, there weren't a lot of opportunities for women. So I, with a number of other women in Northern Virginia, created a team. As I like to say, had about 10 national team players, and the balance, the other 8 players, were Division I college athletes that had graduated. We used to laugh as we tell the stories now that if we had more than 8 players show up, then it would be an uneven game. And so that was the start of it for me. But I then went on and moved to Los Angeles, where I played in leagues in LA, and then I came back here to New York, and I played in leagues here in New York. So played for many years, probably about 10 years in USASA after I graduated from college. Well, when I've talked to a lot of members of USASA about what can we do to grow the ranks of the adult membership, and also to provide resources and opportunity for those members of USASA. And from my standpoint, I think there's probably 3 or 4 things we really need to focus on. First and foremost, I think we need to think about what do we do to market the affiliation between leagues and players in USASA associated leagues with the federation. So marketing programs, whether that is just about affiliating with the logo of U.S. Soccer, but I think it goes deeper. How do we actually provide you something that differentiates an affiliated league with an unaffiliated league? Number 2, I think we've got to determine how do we actually best use some of those financial resources that you've been paying to the federation, and whether that is in reducing the fees that USASA has to pay to the federation, or use those as investment funds to bring opportunity and value back to the membership. To me, we've got to really dig into that to bring value back to USASA. I think we need to talk as well about facility issues, which is very different across the entire country. Whereas in the West Coast, they may have better opportunity for fields, whereas in the Northeast, it may be difficult to get time. So I think we've got to see if there are ways for us to help the members advocate for additional fields in their communities. And then finally, I think we've got to work to really help USASA develop what the future of the membership can look like. Because we don't want just 250,000 players associated with our adult leagues. We want many, many more. Well, I've stated a couple of different times when I think about the future of the Federation, I think there are 3 really key things that I've tended to focus my initial efforts on. First and foremost is the vision. I think we as a country should really get out of bed every morning and think about how we become the greatest soccer nation in the world. But in order to do that, it means each and every one of our members has to actually succeed and grow in their respective areas, whether that be additional players, whether that be additional coaches, referees, administrators, volunteers, whether that be in our professional games and how they continue to elevate, or that be with our fans, and ultimately, of course, our national teams. So for me, it starts there. The second is I've also indicated the development of an independent commission, which I believe will be intended to look at how do we evolve what we're doing. Now, primary objective on that is grassroots and potentially youth development. But I think as a result of that, we will affect coaches and referees, where I think we've got a lot of work to do, which I think the adults are very much a very key, important part of that. Because I believe that what's happening in our adult game is also the gateway for people to stay in the game and continue, whether that be in coaching or refereeing. And then finally, I believe our women's game needs to continue not to look in the rearview mirror for how we stay ahead of the rest of the world, but how do we look at the horizon and think and dream about how big we can become. Those are the three things, but it doesn't end there for me. And so while I talk about short-term fixes with USASA and things I think the Federation can do, I also believe as we think to the future, that will be next on the list about how do we start to engage much more a neglected membership of USASA and bring you back into the fold. So we have a lot more work to do from my perspective to give you more resources and work with you so we can continue to see great success in our adult game. Well, I think first of all, I'm the ideal candidate for this position because as a lifelong member of our soccer community, first as an athlete, then as an executive, but throughout all of it as a fan. I have the most unique skill set to bring to this position. But it goes beyond that. It goes to my passion for the game and my willingness to contribute whatever it takes for us to become the greatest soccer nation in the world. And I think that I am the sole candidate that brings the real vision for change, which I think is consistent, but also the experience that can get it done.